It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X, _ Jonathan Smith, to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. No matter how you're listening, though, it's always greatly, greatly appreciated. Hoo-wee, big show today. Kevin Potts is joining me here in about an hour. We will talk a ton of football. Colts 3-0 on the road against the Rams this week. Thursday night football tonight. Kevin lives in Seattle, so we'll probably talk about that a little bit as well. And, of course, we're going to talk about the one and only Daniel Jones, right? The guy this year in the NFL who has really, revived his career here in Indianapolis. And there are a lot of theories on why quarterbacks don't pan out in the NFL, especially the ones that come from these high-level colleges. And I know that Daniel Jones played at Duke, not exactly, Alabama or Ohio State or any other place like that. But I think that this applies to him as well. And, when people talk about, why the Alabama, Ohio State quarterbacks don't really catch on in the NFL, there's all these different, theories. And some people think that it's because they're surrounded by great levels of talent, right? And they get great coaching. And then they get drafted, with one of the first 5 picks. And then they go to a bad organization where there's not a lot of talent around them, and there's probably a coaching drop-off. And there's probably some truth, right, in part of why they struggle in those environments. Like a large part of why Daniel Jones is better in Indianapolis than he was in New York is because the offensive line that he's playing behind is better, and the weapons that he's throwing to, with the exception of Malik Neighbors, that dude's a stud. All the other weapons, though, were better. And why I do think Brian Daboll is a good head coach, helped Josh Allen figure it out when he was the offensive coordinator in Buffalo. I do think Brian Daboll will find a job pretty quickly if he gets fired at some point during the year. But when you look at what Shane Steichen's done, he did more as a coordinator in Philly than Daboll did as a coordinator in Buffalo, and kind of had a similar thing of helping bring Jalen Hurts along. So, Daniel Jones went from a place with a lesser coach and less talent around him to a place now where there's talent in abundance and a head coach who understands what he does and doesn't do well, right? So there is some truth in the idea that some quarterbacks don't pan out because they just end up in places where there's issues and there's not a lot of talent. Okay. While there's some truth in that, I don't think that's entirely the thing. The quarterbacks that go to Alabama and Ohio State and all these other highly successful colleges never fail. Like, they win a bunch of games in high school, and they're like, the third-ranked quarterback in the country, and they're going to all these different camps, and everybody wants them, and everyone thinks they're cool, and all that kind of stuff, right? So they do that in high school, and then they go to college. Maybe they sit for a year or two. In the olden days, things are obviously changing. And then they go to college and they win a bunch of games in college, because they're good and their coach is good and everyone around them can play as well. Then they get drafted to a bad team. And for a lot of these guys, not all of them, but for a lot of these guys, for the first time in their lives, they lose a lot. Okay. And that is not a fun thing to deal with. And when you're dealing with it for the first time in your life in a professional setting, that's not an easy thing to kind of deal with. If Caleb Williams ends up being good, and I think that he will, his final year at USC is going to be important because things weren't perfect and they lost a lot of games that year. People made fun of him because he cried after a loss. Going through that kind of failure is a good thing. Jaden Daniels, number 2 overall pick last year, put together an outstanding rookie season. He was bad at Arizona State. He had to transfer. And then he gets to LSU. And that first year at LSU, he wasn't very good. And then he finally figures it out, has a really nice final season, ends up getting drafted second overall. Patrick Mahomes lost a lot of games at Texas Tech. They lost a lot of football games when Patrick Mahomes was there. Tom Brady barely played at Michigan, played his senior year. That was it. Got beat out time and time again. The majority of NFL quarterbacks that find success have failed at some point, and they figure out how to deal with it, how to bounce back from it. Okay, Peyton Manning, his rookie year, threw a ton of picks. He set the record, and he responded to it in the best way possible, right? Takes the offseason, really works at it, comes back year 2 on, one of the best quarterbacks ever, right? And a large part of why Daniel Jones has found a way to be successful in Indianapolis is because he's failed before and he's responded in the right way. Lost a lot of games at Duke, still found a way to improve and get better. And then he goes to New York and he gets off to an okay start, and then things slowly go downhill. And then they fire Joe Judge, terrible head coach. They fire Joe Judge, bring in Brian Dable. He has, a decent year where they clearly didn't trust him. Like, they didn't really throw the football a lot. And then, things kind of go back to not being very good once teams monitor and adjusted to who Daniel Jones was. And so he ends up having to leave. And even though he's good now, I think everyone would agree that he failed in New York. I don't think that you can really argue against that. And so he fails and ends up in Minnesota, where he is accompanied by the quarterback whisperer, apparently, in Kevin O'Connell. Everyone who seems to come in contact with that guy turns to gold. It's kind of amazing. And he goes to Minnesota, does it on purpose, so that he can show up and learn from one of the smartest guys in the NFL. And that decision to go to Minnesota and just understand that he wasn't going to play and that he was just going to sit there and learn for, 6 weeks plus, the 1 week of the playoffs, that decision is a large part. It's not everything, but I do think it's a large part of why he's found so much success here in Indianapolis. The way that you respond to failure has to be good. And you can tell that Daniel Jones's response couldn't have been better. Here he is talking about his time in Minnesota.
Yeah, I thought it was extremely helpful. Learned a ton in that short period of time there, watching and learning from those guys, watching Sam prepare, watching Kevin and all those coaches prepare Sam to play. I think how aggressive and the attacking mindset that Kevin has when he's calling a game, when he's preparing, made a huge impression on me. Learned a lot from that.
Daniel Jones right there talking about his time in Minnesota and how impactful that was for him. And look, every good quarterback has to be able to respond to adversity. All of the quarterbacks who have resurrected their careers have the ability to do that. Baker Mayfield, I think, is the ultimate example of this. He walks on at Texas Tech, earns the starting job, and then he transfers to Oklahoma, where he wins a bunch of games and eventually wins the Heisman. Geno Smith, when he took Russell Wilson's job, there was a story about how as he bounced around the NFL, Geno Smith has played for several teams because he was just a backup journeyman. Like, that's just the reality of his career. And I'll never forget when he took Russell Wilson's job, he talked about how he soaked in everything he could everywhere he went as he bounced around the NFL. Daniel Jones clearly did that in Minnesota. It's now paying off here in Indianapolis. And I bring all this up because it gives me a little bit more confidence in him to respond whenever the Colts are down late in games. Because we've kind of seen it like they're down against the Broncos and they move the football down the field into field goal range, and they wind up winning the game. Okay. And but let's just be honest, they caught a little bit of a break. They didn't really throw the football a ton on that drive because Shane Steichen didn't want to give the ball back. So we are still kind of waiting to see what does Daniel Jones look like when there's 2 minutes left and the Colts are down by 5. And the opposing team knows that they're going to throw the football the whole way down the field. Just seeing and knowing how Daniel Jones responded to the struggles in New York gives me at least a little bit of faith and confidence that late in these games, he'll be fine. And plus, whenever you hear him talk, dude just sounds cool. Not cool like Lamar Jackson is cool. Cool as in calm, collected, and nothing really bothers him. I've always believed that in baseball, the best pitchers are the guys who are just kind of unbothered. It's there's the bases are loaded with no outs and we're up by 2. Whatever, no big deal. I'm gonna be fine. Those are the guys in baseball that I think really succeed up on the bump. And I think playing quarterback in the NFL is the exact same way. There's no panic because of the confidence that you have in yourself. And whenever you hear Daniel Jones talk, I kind of get that same vibe. So very excited to watch him play against a really good Rams team on Sunday. That defensive front is really good. Back end of the defense has been a little banged up, not a ton. It does look like they're going to get Witherspoon back this week. I believe that's correct. He wasn't on their injury report yesterday, and I don't think that he's on IR. So it's Daniel Jones against a good secondary in a really good front four that's going to rush the passer as well as anyone else in football. Rams, they lead the league in sacks through the first 3 games. So he's got to be ready to go, and I fully expect him to be. And Sean McVay expects it as well. Sean McVay was asked yesterday during his press conference about Daniel Jones and how he's improved. And here's what the Rams head coach had to say about the Colts starting quarterback.
He's a stud. I think what he's doing is he's seeing the field well. I think Shane does an excellent job of, being able to cater to players' strengths. And you look at it and he's playing in rhythm. He's playing on time. They're a really well orchestrated unit. They do a lot of really good things. He's obviously got the mobility to be able to make you pay as a runner, but I think he's reading well with his feet. He throws the ball with great accuracy and anticipation. And, you see, he's had some really good glimpses with his tenure in the Giants. I know from talking to Kevin how much he enjoyed being with him in Minnesota. And, it's been impressive to watch their overall operation with Daniel leading the way. And then obviously Jonathan Taylor and their skill players and their offensive line. There's no weaknesses. It's why they're, the best offense in the league through 3 weeks.
No weaknesses on this Colts offense, according to Sean McVay, but it all obviously starts with Daniel Jones, right? He is the head of the best offense in football through 3 weeks, as Sean McVay just laid out. And the biggest thing for the Colts this year and why they've been so dominant and why they were able to beat a good Broncos team. The Colts are 1 of 3 teams in football with 0 turnovers through the first 3 games. That has been the single biggest jump from Daniel Jones. If you go through his history and just the issues that he's had holding on to the football, it's not good. It's a really concerning thing. It was one of the concerning things about him coming over. 47 interceptions before coming down here or over here to in Indianapolis. That's a lot of picks, and that's not even including all of the fumbles that he's had in his career because he struggled holding on to the football in the pocket as well. So that has been just the biggest thing from him. He's fumbled the football 50 times in his career. That's a lot. That's a lot of fumbles, and he's cleaned that up. The decision making on his part has been flawless to start the year. Some of that's him. I'm sure that some of that is Shane Steichen as well. And if the Colts can continue to run the football, they can continue to not turn it over, and they can continue to force turnovers on defense, because that's obviously been a large part of their victories as well, then it's really hard not to like this Colts team, not only this week against the Rams, but also going forward. They're obviously not going to commit 0 turnovers all year. Like, Daniel Jones is going to throw a pass that hits a guy in the hands and pops up in the air into the hands of a defender. Like, something like that is going to happen at some point. He's going to get sacked from behind while he's throwing the football, and the ball is going to pop out. Like, that's going to happen at some point, because that's just how the NFL is. But if they can just continue to keep it to a minimum, then they're going to continue to find success and win a lot of games and have a chance to beat everybody. When you don't turn the ball over and you can run the football, you can beat anyone in the NFL. You have a chance every single week, and we've consistently seen the Colts do that through these first 3 games. This is by far, maybe not by far, this is the best opponent that they've played through these first 4 weeks. So we'll see how they fare this week, but it's hard not to like where the Colts are at, given the improvements from Daniel Jones, how he's just kind of responded to everything that's happened. Shane Steichen's play calling ability has been on full display, and this defense just continues to find a way. So very excited to watch the Colts play against a very good Rams team on Sunday. When we come back in about 4 minutes, I've got more audio from Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford talking about this Colts team.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app. Kevin Potts, our amazing draft guy, he's set to join the show coming up here in about 40 minutes. We're going to talk Colts, their hot start. Probably talk a little bit about the Thursday night football game as well. And I have to ask him questions about Fernando Mendoza, who's off to a great start at Indiana. So Sean McVay spoke a little bit about Daniel Jones and this Colts offense. You can just tell that Sean McVay is impressed and understands how efficient this offense has been to start the year.
He's a stud. I think what he's doing is he's seeing the field well. I think Shane does an excellent job of, being able to cater to players' strengths. And you look at it and he's playing in rhythm. He's playing on time. They're a really well orchestrated unit. They do a lot of really good things. He's obviously got the mobility to be able to make you pay as a runner, but I think he's reading well with his feet. He throws the ball with great accuracy and anticipation. And, you see, he's had some really good glimpses with his tenure in the Giants. I know from talking to Kevin how much he enjoyed being with him in Minnesota. And, it's been impressive to watch their overall operation with Daniel leading the way. And then obviously Jonathan Taylor and their skill players and their offensive line. There's no weaknesses. It's why they're, the best offense in the league through 3 weeks.
No weaknesses. And look, the weapons for the Colts, that's the best part of the offense. There's just a lot of really, really good players. And the efficiency of the Colts has just been really impressive. Like Sean McVay brought it up, mentioned how they've only been in like 2nd and 11 or longer twice all year. I firmly believe that the most important down in football is third down. If you're good on third down, then you're not going to punt. And the Colts have obviously been awesome on third downs because they've only punted once. Okay, so if you're good on third down, you're not going to punt. And if you're bad on third down, then you're going to punt and you're not going to score very much. And you're probably going to lose a lot of games. So the most important down in football is third down. But being good on first down makes that third down so much easier. Okay, and this is where Jonathan Taylor really matters. Okay, like I think that he just makes the offense for the Colts easier. Because it's like first down. Most teams like to run the football on first down. And so you load the box and you're like, we can't let Jonathan Taylor go crazy here because if he rips off like a 6-yard gain, then it's 2nd and 4. And chances are the Colts are going to move the sticks after that because it's 2nd and medium. Right? So, if teams load the box, then it's like, all right, Daniel Jones, who's been really good pre-snap this year, Daniel Jones is like, all right, let's throw the football to Tyler Warren and let's pick up 7 yards anyway. And then it's 2nd and 3. And then obviously if they play the pass and they're not loading the box for the run, if they come out nickel or whatever, then you can turn it around. You can hand it off to Jonathan Taylor, who's going to pick up, 4 or 5 yards, right? He's averaging, I think, like 5.1 yards per carry or some incredibly high number like that. So he's been awesome. And Sean McVay totally understands this. Here is Sean McVay talking about Jonathan Taylor and just the amount of skill that he brings to the table.
Yeah, oh yeah. He's excellent. He's a slash runner. He's a home run hitter. I think, they do a great job. He's got a great feel where, you give him a vertical seam, he gets clean to the second level. And then he's even had some dirty runs where he'll make people miss and then end up coming out the gate for, 50 yards or he can take it to the house. So he is special. He's dynamic. And, it's going to be a similar theme in terms of you have to get 11 hats to the football because of how great this guy is.
Sean McVay, Rams head coach right there, talking about Jonathan Taylor and just how good of a football player he is, man. And, I've talked about it a decent amount, the way that he's added to his game. He's a real 3-down back now. And he's making plays, catching the football in space, and obviously you can still turn it around and hand it off to him. And if he gets to, the second or third level, you're probably not going to catch that guy because he's just so incredibly fast. And another week of me saying that he's got to touch the football a bunch, unless the Colts are up big, then you can sit him. But from snap one on, like, this needs to be another week where he's touching the football, 30 times or whatever it ends up being, whether that's him, catching 4 or 5 passes out of the backfield, or Daniel Jones turning around and handing it off to him, 30 times, because like he is the engine of the offense. He is the Colts' best player. He has been their best player to start the year, as good as Daniel Jones has been. Just what Jonathan Taylor's done in both the run and pass game has been so big for the Colts. And it's a large part of why this Colts offense is as efficient as it is. Like that is the word for the Colts and their offense so far this season. Like they are just incredibly efficient. As Sean McVay said, they've only seen 2nd and 11 or longer twice all year. And when you're staying on schedule, it makes everything easier. Like if you have both a run option and a pass option open to you on every down, then you're obviously much tougher to stop, as opposed to when, it's 3rd and 9 and the defense knows that you're throwing the football. Like if it's 3rd and 3 and you have Jonathan Taylor on the field, it's like, yeah, they could totally hand it off to him and pick up 9 feet, right? So it's Jonathan Taylor's importance to the offense. It can't be stressed enough. He is such a large reason as to why Daniel Jones is having the success that he is, and why the Colts offense is being as efficient as it is. So here's Rams head coach Sean McVay talking about the efficiency of the Colts offense.
Yeah, I think they're not playing behind the sticks. I mean, I think they've had like 2 2nd and 11 pluses the whole year. They punted once, so they're being really efficient, and they're being efficient in both phases, both the run and the pass. They've got great playmakers. They play 11 as one. That's what we always look to try to be able to do. But whether it's on offense or defense, you see a team that is really well coached. They got great players at all different types of spots, and they play together, which is, why they're in the position that they are in. And it's a great challenge.
It's a great challenge, according to Sean McVay, going up against this Indianapolis Colts offense that has been as efficient as any other team in the NFL, both running the football and throwing the football. Like, it just seems like no matter what button is pushed right now for the Colts, things seem to go their way. Like, it has been just a lot of fun to watch. I do think that one of the biggest indicators of the best offenses in football is the yards per play stat. And the Colts lead the NFL in yards per play. They're averaging 6.6 yards per play. That is in front of Baltimore. That is in front of Detroit. That is in front of everybody. And like when you're picking up, 6.5 yards a play, like that you're picking up a first down every 2 plays. And when you're able to do that, then, like, of course, your offense is going to be humming, and you're going to find a lot of success. The issue for the Colts this week, and why I am not convinced that they'll be able to find a win, is Matthew Stafford. Like Matthew Stafford is an absolute stud. Obviously, he beat Louis Anarumo and his defense in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Here is Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford talking about the Colts defense and the Colts defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo.
Really well coached. I got a lot of respect for Lou. I think he does a hell of a job. Been up against him a few times, and he gives you a lot to look at the quarterback position. I think they've got, talented players at all 3 levels. Both their corners are guys that have played football, in the NFL for a long time and are talented guys. Got some guys that are really disruptive up front. Their backers are run and hit guys. So really every level of their defense, I feel like they've got guys that can, impact the game. And I think they're in the right place at the right time. They're well coached. I think he puts them in position to be successful. And then, they're obviously 3-0 playing at a good clip right now. So it'll be a challenge like it is every single week for us.
Matthew Stafford right there. Just so nice. That's, got a lot of respect for Lou, and, they got really good players, all 3 levels of the defense. And, both of their corners have been around for a long time. Notice that he didn't say they have 2 good corners, because that's just not true. And that is the biggest concern for the Colts on Sunday. Hands down. It is by far the biggest concern. Travarius Ward's going to be fine. Okay. He practiced yesterday. He just, unless something happens to him at practice, like he's going to play on Sunday, right? Not worried about Ward. The issue is Xavier Howard. Like they're going to pick on him all game. Okay. The Rams, like they run the football really well, but they're not great at center. So I am thinking that, DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart should be able to find a way to create a little bit of a push in the middle. Maybe that kind of helps slow down Kyron Williams and those guys. But Xavier Howard, I don't know how the Colts fix that. Like, yes, they're good at safety. Cam Bynum and Nick Cross should both be playing again. So maybe that's the answer. Like they roll the safety over to help on, whoever Xavier Howard is having to guard. But like after week 1, it's been a complete and total struggle. Okay. And the Rams have great receivers. Okay. Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua, like that has to be up there amongst the best wide receiver duos in football. So one way or the other, Xavier Howard is dealing with them. And then you have the issue that, Matthew Stafford's just one of the best quarterbacks ever. Definitely a Hall of Famer, maybe a first ballot guy. And, you heard, Matthew Stafford say there in that clip that Lou Anarumo gives quarterbacks a lot to look at. The issue is that Matthew Stafford's played football for forever. He's been around long enough that I just don't expect him to get confused or rushed. Like the interception that Bo Nix threw, he looked rushed because he thought that the Colts were going to blitz. And so he rushed the throw. He leaves it high. Cam Bynum makes the play. Okay, Tua tricked multiple times. Just doesn't see the blitz coming. On one play, Kenny Moore gets a strip sack and the Colts jump on it. He threw a really bad pick as well. Cam Ward, you could tell, just had no idea what he was doing. Like with Matthew Stafford, there's a clip of Aaron Rodgers playing quarterback, and they're doing this, it's when he played for the Jets first year before he gets hurt. And they're in, training camp, and they're doing 11-on-11 stuff, and this defensive back for the Jets is like crowding the line of scrimmage, like he's up about to blitz or whatever. And and Aaron Rodgers looks at the guy in his face and goes, "You're not coming. Like, I know you're not blitzing. I've seen this coverage before. I know, like, you're going to pull out. No doubt about it." And sure enough, Aaron Rodgers snaps the football and the guy pulls out. And that's what it's like playing against Matthew Stafford. Okay, like he knows exactly what this Colts defense is going to do. All right, because he's seen all of it before. Now, maybe he makes a mistake. Matthew Stafford wasn't great against Philly last Sunday, so which kind of makes me a little more nervous because, like he's going to be looking to get right this week. So, and is there a better cornerback to play against than Xavier Howard when you're trying to get right? I don't really think that there is. Also, no Kenny Moore this week. Like they just signed a guy who wasn't playing for anybody, and he's probably going to have to play. Like it's a very concerning thing for the Colts going forward. And I don't know how this Colts defense is going to hold up against, Matthew Stafford. Ross threw something in the chat that I just very rarely are things said in the chat that make me stumble or stop and question things. But apparently one of the guys over on the other station said that he didn't think that Matthew Stafford was a Hall of Famer. And that's just an example of why you shouldn't listen to the other station. Like, come on now. If you don't think Matthew Stafford's a Hall of Famer, I just don't want your opinion on anything else. Simple as that. Because Matthew Stafford is an absolute problem. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, has been really for his entire career. I understand he didn't win a ton in Detroit, but Detroit weren't very good. That's just the very simple reality of it. And, Daniel Jones was asked about Matthew Stafford and just kind of Matthew Stafford's career. Daniel Jones was very complimentary of the legend that is Matthew Stafford. And I've got that audio for you in 4 minutes.
If it's in today's sports world, it's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM. 93.9 HD2 and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. So head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app or 14:30 a.m. Kevin Potts is joining the show here in about 20 minutes. We'll keep talking Colts and a little bit of IU football as well. Matthew Stafford, kind of a problem having to play against that guy. Been a stud in the NFL for a really, really long time. Here is Colts quarterback Daniel Jones talking about Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, he's a fun guy to watch. I think I've always enjoyed watching his games, watching him play. He's extremely talented as a passer and, can make any throw and makes it look easy. And then, just plays, has a really high football IQ. You can tell he knows where the ball is supposed to go, and he does it. And he's been playing really well for a long time. So he's a fun guy to watch.
Daniel Jones right there talking about Matthew Stafford and how he's been doing it in the NFL for a really long time. And look, Matthew Stafford's one of the best quarterbacks in recent NFL history. He's on a pretty short list of NFL players. And I'm just like, you know what sounds good? Watching Matthew Stafford throw the football. Okay, I'm just like, I'm amped for Sunday just simply because I get to watch Matthew Stafford play a full game of football. And I'm having a hard time picking the Colts on Sunday because they're playing this guy. And like I know and understand that Daniel Jones has been awesome to start the year. Okay, throwing the ball all over the yard, third in the NFL in passing yards and very, very efficient, hasn't turned the football over. He's been really good. Right? I don't think he's been the best quarterback in the NFL to start the year, but he's been certainly one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL to start the year. But let's just be honest, he's not better than Matthew Stafford. He's not. Like, this is the first game that the Colts are walking into where they're probably not going to have the better quarterback. I'm a firm believer that whoever has the better quarterback usually wins. It's just the reality of it. And Daniel Jones outplayed Tua, Bo Nix, and Cam Ward in these first 3 games. And there's a decent chance that that's not going to be the case on Sunday. I expect that after a really rough game against Philly, for Matthew Stafford to bounce back in a big way. If you like the Colts to win, I would bet the over, simply because they're going to have to score a ton of points if they want to pull this game out. Good news for the Colts. They don't seem overly banged up. They put out, their practice report yesterday, and here are the guys who didn't practice. DeForest Buckner didn't practice. He's got a back. Matt Gonsalves was apparently in a boot. He's got a toe thing. Xavier Howard didn't practice because of rest. Kenny Moore didn't practice because of his Achilles. Alec Pierce didn't practice because of his concussion. And then Rigoberto Sanchez didn't practice either for a personal matter. Doesn't matter. Hopefully Sanchez won't be needed again on Sunday. So players not practicing on Wednesday, not the biggest deal in the world. Last week, Tyler Warren and Josh Downs didn't practice on Wednesday, and they both played. They were fine. Kenny Moore and Alec Pierce probably aren't going to play on Sunday. Kenny Moore with the Achilles thing. Alec Pierce, he could clear concussion protocol, but it's really hard to do it in only a week. And so he probably isn't going to play either. But aside from that, I wouldn't be surprised if the rest of these guys played. Like DeForest Buckner is just an older guy. He's going to miss practice on Wednesday sometimes. Like, that's a pretty normal thing. Matt Gonsalves being in a boot, like, that is concerning. But I don't know, like, he played the entire game against the Titans. And I feel like if you can play that entire game, then, like, why wouldn't you be able to suit up the following week? Then again, I'm not a doctor. I have no idea how all that stuff works. But even if those guys miss, only 4 injuries to starters in week 4. Like, you've got 18 of your 22 normal guys. Like, even if you're having to run Danny Pinter out there at right guard, like, they should be fine. Like, the Colts should still be healthy enough to give the Rams a really, really tough game. So now the Rams they're in the same boat. Like, they are incredibly healthy as well. They had, a few guys not practice on Wednesday, which is, like I said, a pretty normal thing here. They had an offensive lineman not practice. Devontae Adams didn't practice either. He's got a hamstring thing, and then they had a bunch of guys who were limited. One of them being another offensive lineman, Steve Avila, which, Sean McVay said in his press conference that there's a chance that he doesn't play, but like they won't know until later on in the week. But I don't know. I feel like if you're a limited participant on Wednesday, then like you should be ready to go by the time, the week starts. So, so like the Rams are, like I said, pretty healthy, like probably a little more healthy than the Colts. But once again, if you've got 18 of your 22 normal starters out there on the field, then like that's not being banged up enough, especially when you still have your quarterback, left tackle, best offensive skill player in Jonathan Taylor, your best corner, your two really good safeties, and your best pass rushers. Like, if you have all of that, then, I'm not going to feel sorry for you because your right guard isn't playing, and your third best receiver is not playing, and so on. So Colts continue to be really healthy, and that is going to continue to be a really big thing because just the depth of the Colts just isn't great. It's not great. We have football tonight, and I can't wait. I can't wait for Thursday Night Football. I think this game tonight is going to be just an absolute blast. We got the Seahawks going on the road to play against the Cardinals, and these are two really good teams that, people aren't really talking about because why would you talk about, the 2-1 Cardinals or the 2-1 Seahawks when you can talk about the 3-0 Colts, right? So going to be, I think, just a really fun game tonight. Two really similar teams, both coached by these like defensive-minded guys. Jonathan Gannon was the defensive coordinator in Philly when they went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Chiefs, when Shane Steichen was there, and Mike McDonald, was formerly the defensive coordinator in Baltimore, and all the football nerds rant and rave about all the stuff that he does, and both teams have good but like not great quarterbacks. Like Kyler Murray's a good quarterback, and he can win a game for you, but Kyler Murray is also very capable of losing the game for you. And then you got Sam Darnold, where it's the same thing. Like he had moments in Minnesota last year where he's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go win this game for us. And then like he would. And, then Sam Darnold would also have games where it's like, what are you doing, man? You just threw 3 picks, and those games tended to happen whenever I had money on them. So both quarterbacks can be a little volatile, but they've both just got really good pieces around them. Like if you run through the Cardinals and just all the guys that they have on their roster, like they've just got all of these really, really good players. Like Trey Benson, good running back. James Conner is better, but James Conner is on IR. Marvin Harrison Jr., excited to watch him play tonight. I know he's gotten off to a slow start this year. He's had some drops that are pretty, unusual for him, but I think he'll be fine. Trey McBride's one of the best tight ends in football. Freaking love that dude. Paris Johnson Jr. is a good left tackle. Defensively for Arizona, they got guys who can rush the passer. Calais Campbell, the LeBron James of the National Football League, year 18, still out there playing. Just really impressive. I hope that Will Johnson plays tonight. He was the corner out of Michigan who fell in the draft. The games that he's played in, he's been really good. Budda Baker is still, one of the best corners in football. So like you look up and down the Cardinals roster and it's like, yeah, they got a lot of really, really good players. And then with Seattle, it's the exact same thing. Obviously Sam Darnold, good quarterback, not a great one. They've got a really nice pairing of running backs between Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Jackson Smith and Jigba, as soon as the Seahawks got, let DK Metcalf walk, you're like, all right, Jackson Smith and Jigba time. Like he's going to have a big year. So, and he's had that so far. Cooper Kupp, definitely not what he once was. Still a really nice player, though, as much as I rant and rave about the Colts and their offensive line, the Seattle Seahawks are the only offensive line in football to not allow a sack through these first 3 games. So there's that whole aspect of it. Like I said, 2 really good teams, 2 really good defenses. Like the Seahawks defense is nasty. Like they rush the passer at a really high level. Byron Murphy, nose tackle out of Texas, just a stud. DeMarcus Lawrence is playing for him. Leonard Williams, another good end. Kobe Bryant at strong safeties is having a good start to the year. Reek Woolen is a good corner. Devon Witherspoon, really good nickel. So I like both of these teams. It's a divisional matchup. Divisional games always tend to be closer. I think the game is going to be ugly because it's a short week, and a lot of these Thursday night games are ugly. And then you throw in the fact that both of these teams have pretty good defenses on top of it with, average to above average quarterbacks. I'm really excited. I would bet the under, and I would take the Seahawks -1.5 just because I think they're a little bit better in the trenches than the Cardinals. Neither team is super banged up on top of it. So Thursday night football tonight is going to be amazing. Saturday, Indiana going on the road to Iowa is going to be a lot of fun. Very excited to watch Fernando Mendoza again. Just like, what does he look like on the road? Iowa's defense is pretty good. We had Shehan Jeyarajah on yesterday, college football guy for CBS Sports, kind of talked about how the strengths of Iowa line up against, the strengths of the Hoosiers. So it should be, we'll see if it was or not, should be a tougher game for IU. We'll see. They just looked so dominant that I'm just not convinced that Iowa, a team who really can't score, I don't know how Iowa really kind of hangs with them. But Kevin Potts is going to join the show. We're obviously going to talk NFL. Kevin Potts is an awesome draft guy. Like, we have him on all the time during draft season. So we'll talk about Mendoza and just kind of what he thinks about Indiana football as a whole. So going to be really fun when he joins the show here in about 7 minutes. We'll talk Thursday night football on top of all of it because, our guy Kevin lives all the way out in, where's he live? Seattle. So he's up there in the area, watches the Seahawks a ton. He's a Niners fan as well. So we'll probably talk about that a little bit. I don't know how. Yes, I do. The 49ers continue to win games despite being banged up. It is so impressive. Like, them and the Buccaneers both just keep finding ways to win despite dealing with all of these injuries. And they're just tough. And like, that's the thing about the Colts. Like, I want to know how tough they are as a group because things have been, relatively easy so far. Games 1 and 2, or excuse me, games 1 and 3, you played a bad team, and then the Broncos game, they found a way, right? So I do think this team is tougher than the teams that they've had in years past. There's been a little bit of a changing of the guard in terms of the leadership on that team, and like, you need to have that sometimes, and to improve just kind of the mental makeup of your roster. So how tough are the Colts? Can they find a way to win on Sunday? I don't know. I certainly wouldn't bet on it. And the game tonight is going to be awesome. So Kevin Potts of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Substack, he's going to join the show when we come back. Talk a little Colts. How are they going to fare against the Rams on Sunday? And then we'll talk a little IU football as well. Fernando Mendoza slinging the rock, putting up 63 on an Illinois team that people had really high hopes for coming into the season. Now they're going to go on the road to Iowa, play a really good defensive team that can't really score. So very excited to have Kevin Potts on here in about 4 minutes.
Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into hour number 2 of the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X _ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM. No matter how you're listening, it's greatly appreciated because there are many, many places to get sports content, including from our guest, Kevin Potts, who does a great job covering the NFL draft, and college football. You can go read all this stuff over at the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdowns Substack. Kevin, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm fantastic. You know, we got early fall. It's the best part of the sports calendar coming up here. It's pretty hard to be negative about any of that.
It really is. I'm sure for both of us right now, things are great because the Colts are 3-0. The 49ers are somehow, some way 3-0. I still can't believe, you got Mac Jones winning 2 games. It's amazing. But I want to start with the Colts. How good do you think they are?
I think they're pretty good. I think it'd be hard to say they're not after a 3-0 start. No matter what you may think of a team or a player, it's not easy to do that in the National Football League. And while you could probably sit here and poke some holes and maybe, the defense hasn't played a real quarterback yet, is Daniel Jones going to keep this up? I think there's enough that I like about this team that I think they're legit. Starts with coaching. I think there's been some fair criticisms of Shane Steichen over the past couple of years as an overall head coach. I think we're seeing this year as a play caller how he's still one of the league's best. Lou Anarumo on the other side of the ball, also a fantastic play caller. And then I think what really makes me have faith in the team is the skill position players on this offense. We've talked about it for a couple of years now. I think they're extremely talented. I think they work super well together as pass catchers. And then you surround that with an all-pro running back who looks as good as he ever has in Jonathan Taylor. And I think it gives them a really high floor, even if you expect some regression maybe in some areas. And then when you play in AFC South, so quite frankly, outside of the Colts, the other 3 teams look embarrassing. And you have this incredible start. I think you should be pretty optimistic about the season.
Feels like they should win this division. I do want to push back a little bit on the Steichen stuff because I've defended him quite a bit. And while you're right, there have been some very fair criticisms about him the last couple of years, calling trick plays in bad spots. His first year throwing a swing pass to Tyler Goodson instead of Jonathan Taylor to try to win the division. Very questionable things. My question would be, how much of those decisions do you think were impacted by the severe limitations at quarterback that the Colts had those first 2 seasons compared to now where we haven't seen him make those kinds of play calls, whereas obviously the end of game clock management against Denver was not good. But how much of those previously questionable decisions were made because of the limitations at quarterback for the Colts?
I think probably most of them. And even those play calls are not actually mostly the issue I have with Steichen. I think sometimes it's very easy to go, oh, this play call didn't work, therefore it's bad. Where if a guy catches the ball and gets the first down, we're probably not having this discussion. Most of my criticisms with Steichen as a coach are more from the player management perspective. And obviously the players play a part in this with the whole Anthony Richardson thing last year. But it was just kind of a mess, I feel like, over the past year and some change. But in terms of just what he is called on the field, even through some of those muckier patches, especially last year where it didn't look as good, he was trotting out Joe Flacco. There's really only just so many things you can do as a play caller in that situation. So I've never really had much of an issue with him as an offensive mind. It's been more of a personnel management thing that I think that's been more of my issue with Steichen as a coach.
That is fair. Totally fair. No rebuttal from me on that. Joined by Kevin Potts of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack. You can follow him on X at kpots06. Speaking of player management, he's managed Daniel Jones pretty well. How sustainable is the success that we've seen from Daniel Jones?
It feels weird to say, but I think decently sustainable. I'd be lying to you if I wasn't expecting the wheels to still come off, because we've seen Daniel Jones for 4 years not exactly be the greatest quarterback. But it's not like fake production through 3 weeks of the season. I think you'd expect if Daniel Jones is doing well, that a lot of play action, a lot of relying on the skill position players, but the underlying stats look great. He's third in EPA per dropback against pressure, sixth against the blitz, first when he's not in play action. So these are like the buckets you look for that the real quarterbacks who do really well excel in, and the tape matches it up. That Broncos game, he was under pressure over like 50% of his dropback, was making big throws all over the place. I mean, it hasn't been perfect. He'll definitely still put some balls in harm's way. And I do think the overall creation in the pocket and how much a high level it's been at feels like something he's never done before. And I don't know how long that keeps up, but it's been such a high level of play, even if you account for a reasonable regression to the mean out of him. I still think that is more than enough quarterback play, given what this Colts team has on the offense, for them to be a very good offense.
I agree. It feels very sustainable. I do want to ask this, though. So I was listening to the Sean McVay press conference, and he mentioned a stat that I was completely unaware of. The Colts have only been in 2nd and 11 or more twice through all these games. How much faith do you have in Daniel Jones when it's like 3rd and 10 and the defense knows that you have to throw the football and the Colts aren't playing on schedule like they've done a really good job of because of Daniel Jones to start the year?
That is generally where I think the problems are probably going to arise, because that is where the top level quarterbacks really have to shine. But I also don't know how much they're going to get in this situation. I think it reminds me actually a little bit of the Vikings last year with Sam Darnold, where when he got put in against the Rams in a playoff situation where he had to drop back a ton, it didn't look very good. But for the most part, over the long course of the season, they did a really good job of keeping everything in structure and like on time, and they played well. And I think Jones is going to be the same way. And I don't think a ton of teams are going to put the Colts in that situation. Yeah, when we get to the playoffs and we're talking about, hey, can he go toe-to-toe with Lamar and Josh Allen in these 3rd and longs and gun with them? I don't have much faith in that, but I don't think we're going to get to that situation for a while. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal.
Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdowns Substack. What are your thoughts on the Colts defense?
I think they have done a pretty nice job so far. I think this week's going to be a big test because, I mean, we can be honest here. The quarterbacks they have played have not exactly been murderer's row in Tua, Bo Nix, and Cam Ward. I think they've done a lot of nice things. I think the additions of Bynum and Ward on the back end has made that a lot more sound. I love a lot of stuff that Big Lou's doing in terms of scheme with the simulated pressures, changing up the looks. But they've really struggled against the run. I think the 24th in success rate and lower than that in rush EPA allowed. I still have questions about that linebacker core. Their pressure rate is, I think, 21st in the league. So there's some concerning underlying numbers. I don't think they're ever going to be world beaters on defense. I would like to see them probably settle in that around like the 15th best defense in football. I think they'll be fine. But I think this weekend against the Rams, a team obviously with a fantastic quarterback and a great play caller, will give us some more clarity on what we can kind of expect from this defense going forward.
Yeah, there's definitely holes with this Colts defense. And, you know, look, Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford should scare everybody, but it definitely scares me when you've got Xavier Howard as one of your 2 starting corners. I have a lot of concerns about the defense because you're very right in like Tua, Bo Nix, Cam Ward, not exactly murderer's row, but the run defense is like, you know, my audience is probably like, Jonathan, will you please shut up about the run defense? You talk about it every day, but it's like you go back and you watch the Dolphins game and the Dolphins are ripping off like 7 yards a carry, but because Tua turns it over 3 times in the first half and they go down 17-0, like they can't keep running the football. Sean Payton is an excellent head coach, excellent play caller. I forget who their starting running back is. J.K. Dobbins. He's averaging like 6 yards a carry in that game against the Colts, and for some reason he only got 14 carries. And then against the Titans, they finally shorted up. But I have a lot of questions about the linebackers and the defensive line. As you mentioned, the back end of the defense is much improved, bringing in Ward and Bynum. What do you think about the front 7 for the Colts?
The front seven, I think, is interesting because I do like a lot of the pieces. I mean, as someone who's watched a lot of 49ers football, I will never say a bad thing about DeForest Buckner ever in my life. He is one of my favorite players I've ever watched. I think Latu has looked really, really good through 3 weeks this season. I still think they just don't have that tier one pass rush juice to really put players away. And I think those defensive tackles are getting moved a little bit, and when you don't have the best linebackers to overcompensate, that's kind of why I think you're getting these run game issues. I will always say run defense is very, very important. I do think since this Colts offense is playing so well, if they can keep it up, they can kind of skate around it. Like you said, because the Broncos had to abandon the run because you have to keep up almost with this offense, that's going to help them. I think the big question for them will be when you get in these pass rushing situations, is Latu the guy that's going to put games away for you? The underlying numbers look really good. His pressure rate, his win rate are all fantastic. But as we get deeper into the season and you're playing in these close games where teams are going to be dropping back to pass, do you have finishers in that front seven? I think that's going to be a big question.
It is, and I'm once again joined by Kevin Potts, writer, the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdowns Substack. Does a great job covering both the NFL and college football. It's a great question with Latu, and you are correct, and the underlying numbers look awesome. But at some point, like, I need a sack, I need one at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And are you surprised that the Colts haven't, like, JT Tuimoloau, he hasn't played a snap. He's been a healthy scratch twice. Is that surprising to you?
A little bit, because I viewed him as a player that I thought could play pretty quickly, and that was one of the draws because he's not this crazy athlete with high upside. I thought he was going to be a guy that slid in right away, and I saw some quotes when I was looking at it this week that it seems like they're talking about positional versatility up along that front, but the other guys they have starting over him, like Ebugam, just play traditional defensive end anyways. So it must be something. I'm not there with practice. I didn't watch a ton of them in the preseason, so I don't know exactly why they feel like he's not ready. But I do find it surprising because he seemed like the exact type of defensive end who would help this run defense. He was fantastic at it in college, and I really thought he'd be a dude that would be not a star early, but a quality rotation player pretty early in his career. So it's surprising he only has like 5 snaps or something through these first 3 weeks.
Yeah, don't get me started on Ebukam. He's been so bad, and I'm just kind of
Titans game wasn't very good.
Like he's been so bad that it makes me very concerned about JT Tuimoloau not playing. I'm like, he's really not better than this guy, but like there's a part of me though that kind of thinks that they're giving Ebukam the benefit of the doubt, because the last time we saw him, he did have 9.5 sacks on the year, and so he's a veteran and all those things. But I do want to ask you, speaking of run defense and running the football, is there any running back in the NFL playing better than Jonathan Taylor as of right now?
It's hard for me to say yes. I mean, obviously the usual cast of characters saw how good Gibbs looked. Robinson always looked good. Saquon's awesome. But the Taylor tape is just, I think it might be the best he's ever looked. Some of those runs against the Titans, that stiff arm where he sent the corner through the crust of the earth, was like, I gasped out loud watching that live and rewatching it. I think he's been awesome as a pass protector, a pass catcher as well. It changes everything. When you have a force of nature back in the middle like that, it makes everyone's job easier. And it's so much fun to watch. It
is, man. Like, when you say the best he's ever looked, you said it, I was like, I don't know. He ran for 1,800 yards at one point, but then it's also like, I don't know. Like you're right. Like he hasn't looked like this. And I've been really impressed just because he's 26, which is kind of the point where you can see a dip off. Like we see it sometimes, but not always. And I've just been really impressed with the power part of his running, because I feel like that's the first thing to leave running backs.
Yeah, he looks fresh too. Like the burst and the power looks like he's just got out of college, and he doesn't have all these carries on his body. And then you pair that, obviously you mentioned 26, sometimes guys physically fall off, but when they don't, usually mentally this is where they're at their best. You see some of the top backs that are good and kind of older, like the Derrick Henrys and the McCaffreys. 26, 27 is kind of when you saw the vision and the pass protection, the things that take more mental acumen really take off. And if he's looking fresh like he is, and he's reached that part of his mental game. I think that's why you get this complete package that just looks like a game-changing force.
Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack. You can follow X at KPotts0. Is it KPotts06 or Kevin Potts06? I forget.
I think it's Kevin Potts 06.
Oh, okay. Just ignore everything else I've said. It's Kevin Potts 06. And yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the pass protection stuff, because like this is the first year of Jonathan Taylor's career that he's been a real 3-down back. Like he's catching the football better than he's caught it. He's making plays after the catch, and then like the blitz pickups from him, some of them have just been really impressive. What does that do for an offense when you can have your best running back on the field on 3rd down?
It makes the defense have to respect you in every down and distance. You also get rid of a lot of tells. If you look at like the Baltimore Ravens, it's very obvious when they're running and passing because the giant person that is Derrick Henry comes off the field and Justice Hill comes in for pass protection. So that makes it easier for defenses to adjust and change their body types and what type of plays they're running. When all your personnel looks the same, and the Colts can do that when they run out their starting 3 wide receiver sets with Taylor in the backfield, you can run pretty much any play out of any situation, especially since they're living in these 2nd and 5s, 3rd and 2s. The full playbook is on their table in every single snap that they take. And Taylor's a big part of that, being able to pass protect. You don't know if he's going to stay in. You have to designate a linebacker for him because obviously you can't let him get the ball in the flat because that's terrifying. And it just makes it so much easier for Steichen as a play caller when he doesn't have to sub out a key player to their offense.
You mentioned Derrick Henry there, and I just have to ask, what's up with him fumbling the football?
I think it's just a small sample size thing. I think it's just kind of a yips thing. If they were both like punch outs from like the backside where he's trying to stiff arm somebody, I would imagine it's probably not a big deal. I have some concerns with their running game just in general, but as far as just Henry in general, I think it's just a 3-week just kind of blip on the radar.
That's how I feel too. But like the fact that they're 1-2 and those fumbles did not help just makes it feel, I guess, a lot worse than what it is. Since you are the draft guy, I have to ask, Tyler Warren, is he meeting expectations, exceeding? Where are you at with him?
Yeah, I think he looks awesome. He's exactly what I expected to basically step in and be a starting NFL tight end. I think you see the skills with the ball in his hands, the ability to make contested catch. I still think the blocking is work in progress. It was always going to be, particularly as an inline guy, especially with kind of those shorter arms. But you see some of the flashes, especially when you put him as a wing or a fullback. I think he looks awesome. He had a really nice lead up on one of the big Taylor runs. I think it was the 45-yard touchdown where he just kicked out a linebacker. So you can see all the tools as a blocker. I think that part is going to take a little bit. But as far as just a pass catcher and what he changes in this offense, working over the middle and as a yak threat, I think he's been everything as advertised.
He's been awesome. We love him here. Shout out to the Bears and Ryan Poles for not taking him at 10. Joined by Kevin Potts, right of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack. It wouldn't be a Kevin Potts appearance on the Real Jonathan Smith Show if I didn't ask him about all of the college quarterbacks. So let's start with the guy down in IU, or down in Bloomington at IU. Fernando Mendoza played his first real opponent. They only won 63-10. What were kind of your thoughts on how Mendoza looked against Illinois?
That's what I wanted to see. I liked him when he was transferring out of Cal. I was not as high on him as some other people because I thought there were some inconsistencies in the tape, but you saw the arm talent, saw the processing, saw the ability to make those big throws. And the idea was when you get out of Cal, which is just a horrible situation, and you get to a school like Indiana that has a pair of good receivers, a good play caller, a good coach, what does it look like? And in that first big test, I think you saw all the positives out of it. Now, it's just one game, and he did look a little shaky against some of those inferior opponents early in the game. But I think that was a huge box for him to check, that when he gets put in a situation that looks good around him, all those good traits he has can rise to the top. And I think he's a dude now that I probably would put QB2 at this early point in the season.
Behind who?
Nussmeier. He's still the number one guy. I know passing yards aren't crazy, and like the overall stats aren't gaudy. I was lucky enough to watch him live in that Florida game, and he just plays quarterback at such a high level that you just need to do to be an NFL guy. Even if the traits aren't spectacular, it's going to be hard for me to move off him as my number one guy.
What do you think of Dante Moore at Oregon? Because he's awesome. I love that dude.
I am very excited for this weekend. I have not been able to actually watch any of the tape yet because I've been kind of waiting for the first real opponent. But the kid can sling it. I think he is already established he has the baseline to be an NFL quarterback in terms of the arm talent, the ball placement when he's clean in the pocket, particularly down the field, looks really, really good. I'm curious to see what happens when he gets sped up against a really good pressure package from Penn State and a really hostile environment in a whiteout. How does he perform? And I still think he's a little bit too much of a fastball thrower. Some of those touch routes I don't really see. He kind of just drives all the tight windows. So those are two things I'm watching for this weekend. If you're sitting down and watching that game, which I imagine most people will be, see how he plays when things get a little bit messy and aren't on script, because this Oregon team's kind of rolled all of the year and it's been pretty easy for him, but he has looked great.
Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack. We talked a little Colts, how they're rolling. We're talking a little bit of college football now. I want to go back to Mendoza in that game against Illinois. The thing that jumped out to me the most was, like, it wasn't the arm talent or anything like that, because like you saw it at Cal and you trust me, I heard about it all off season and all that kind of stuff. I was very impressed with just the poise. Like, he never looked rushed. Did that stick out to you at all?
Yeah, and that was on his Cal tape too. And it was almost a double-edged sword because he is so willing to stick in the pocket even when it gets muddy and gross and make some of those big throws. He was fearless. Like, he would throw a pick or two in Cal. He's coming back and he's going to keep ripping those throws that he needs to go. There's a little bit of Geno Smith in him in a complimentary way in that manner, where the stuff just doesn't really faze him. And it's what got him in trouble last year, because he would keep going back to the well, even though he probably shouldn't have. But I think when things look a little better around him, which they did this week, you see those as such a positive trait, the ability just to deal with things going wrong and to continue coming back and firing. It's just what you need as an NFL quarterback, because it's never going to be easy in the league for you.
Yeah, and I love the dude. Like, after one game, man, I'm like, all right, I get it now. And I do think the one thing that Indiana fans haven't really gotten to see from him yet, that we might see Saturday against Iowa, but I think we'll definitely see next Saturday on the road against Oregon. He's very athletic, and I am very intrigued to see what that opens up for Indiana's offense, because as much as everyone loved, Curtis Rourke last year, drafted it in the 6th round by your 49ers. He wasn't a super athlete, so I'm very excited for Mendoza and kind of seeing that aspect of IU's offense when they hopefully play against someone who challenges them here at some point.
Yeah, I mean, got a couple more big games coming up, Iowa and then Oregon back-to-back. Those are two teams that sport pretty good defenses. So if he keeps stacking these wins against these tests, I think he's going to be pretty locked into the first-round conversation.
So, Kevin, you're in Seattle, so I have to ask you about the Cardinals and Seahawks game tonight. These teams, I think, are like almost identical. Like when I look at their rosters, like they both have a lot of players that I like. They both have like good but not great quarterbacks. They both have these young defensive-minded head coaches. They're both 2-1 with their 1 losses, each being like a weird home loss to the 49ers. Like, just a lot of similarities. What do you think about the game tonight?
I'm really excited for this game tonight. I think when the Seahawks are on defense and Cardinals on offense, it's not the most exciting for me. I think the Seahawks defense might be probably is a top 5 unit in football. I think they're probably going to stuff the Cardinals in the locker a little bit, because this Cardinals team just really struggled to move the ball. Now you lose James Conner. But I'm very excited when the Seahawks are on offense, the Cardinals are on defense. And for those who don't watch the Prime Vision on Thursday Night Football, if you ever want to give it a shot, this would be the game, because the Cardinals defense is crazy. They run pretty much everything under the sun. They love these 3 safety sets. They'll bring 5-6 guys. They drop edge rushers. They do a bunch of really funky stuff. I think it's going to be really fun to see how the Seahawks deal with it, because Darnold, when he is clean and no pressure, he is 7th in EPA per dropback. When he is pressured, he is 27th. So it's a pretty big discrepancy. He's 18th against the blitz as well. So if this Cardinals team can get pressure with all their various pressure packages, Calais Campbell's been awesome, Josh Sweat's been awesome, they can get pressure on Darnold, I think this is going to be pretty ugly on that side of the ball. On the other hand, the Seahawks' strengths on offense match up with weakness on the Cardinals' defense. That is the deep ball. They got shredded last week by Ricky Pearsall and the Niners on deep balls. You still don't have your 2 top corners in this game. And in comes JSN, who's first in the NFL in deep yards and is probably the evolved version of Ricky Pearsall. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see if the Seahawks can block it up. They should be able to rip this Cardinals defense down the field. But if not, I think we might be in for a very ugly 13-10 classic divisional Thursday night game.
Yeah, I think the game is going to be really ugly, and it's not fair for me to say that because most of these Thursday night games are ugly just because it's because of the short week. Seahawks offensive line, the only offensive line in football to not allow a sack through 3 weeks. So it'll be a lot of fun just to kind of pay attention to. I'm stoked for the game. I think it's going to be awesome. Last thing for you, Kevin, before I let you go. The Saturday slate is awesome. What are the games that you're like? Obviously, everyone's looking forward to Alabama, Georgia, or Oregon, and Penn State. Besides those two and Ole Miss, LSU, people are excited for that one. What are some of the other maybe lesser games that you're kind of looking at and looking forward to seeing?
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't point out the game that I am going to be going to, and that's Ohio State, Washington. It's a 12:30 game here. It's been that noon start here. 7.5 point favorite for Ohio State. Husky offense has not punted since the first quarter of week 1. They have not lost a home game since 2021. And in comes Ohio State, who's obviously the #1 team in the country. I think I'm very excited to see how Julian Sayin handles his first true road start in a very loud environment. And I'm excited to see this Husky offense that's been awesome get measured against their first real opponent in Ohio State.
Okay. Are you sad that you're going to miss Taylon Green tear up the Notre Dame defense?
Well, that's what my phone is for.
That's right.
We have the beauty of streaming these days that I can get a game on while at a game and just really immerse myself in the football.
Yeah, Saturday's awesome. Like I'm excited to watch USC. Like I know Illinois is not as good as what everyone kind of expected. Or maybe Indiana's just awesome. I don't know. We're going to find out Saturday, but like USC is, I don't want to call them a surprise because I at least just expect for Lincoln Riley teams to be good, at least on offense. They've been really impressive, even though they've played some lesser opponents. Illinois is trying to get back on track. Arkansas, Notre Dame, like that game may reach the 70s because neither team can get a stop and both teams can really throw it. Cincinnati and Kansas is like kind of interesting. So there's just a lot of really Auburn and A&M is going to get weird. I guarantee that. Yeah. So it's just the Saturday slate's awesome. The Sunday slate's good. The game tomorrow night between TCU and Arizona State on Fox should be a lot of fun as well. So just
I was going to point that out. I think that's going to be a good one. Josh Hoover, TCU's quarterback, is getting a lot of hype recently. So I'm excited to see him play.
He should.
Another big game.
I know he had the weird furry related stuff in the offseason, but like watch that dude play football and you're like, I don't think I care anymore. that dude's really good. So it's going to be fun. I've heard so many people talk about the Washington and Ohio State game, whereas like originally I was like, Ohio State probably rolls because they're Ohio State, but Jeb Bush, this is year 2. And like, what has he brought? Because I remember when he was at Arizona, I just remember being like, are they really good? Or is Tedero McMillan and I forget their quarterback's name? Is it like just because of them, Yeah.
Well, I think he keeps finding those duos is the thing. Like he had Fafita and McMillan. It's like, oh, can he do it again? And now you have a very similar setup with Damon Williams, who's an undersized athletic quarterback, and Denzel Boston, who's a big athletic NFL receiver. He's a fantastic recruiter. He's done a really good job of bringing talent into this program. And then just in terms of the offensive infrastructure, I think there's a lot of holes in his team, particularly on the offensive line. I don't think the defense is great. But his ability to get legit NFL players at the skill position spots and create an offense around an uber athletic quarterback is something he's now done at multiple spots. And I just think that is kind of what he is. And it's year 2. There's still a lot of work in progress, but if they can put up a good showing, even in probably a loss to Ohio State, I think that'd be a pretty big step for this program that's trying to get back on its feet after DeBoer and that entire national championship runner-up team left.
Okay. Kevin Potts, NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack. Kevin, I lied. This is the last thing. I got sidetracked earlier when we were talking about quarterbacks. So Elijah Surratt is he's the best receiver for Indiana. People love him. Big play guy. Fox named him one of the 10 best receivers in college football before the year started. But dude, I love Omar Cooper Jr. Just so physical as a receiver. Like he catches the football and I'm like, he looks like a running back. Just what do you think about him? He's a junior. I don't know if he's an NFL guy, but I really, really like him.
Yeah, he's a dude I hadn't watched for any sort of prep because, he was solid last year, but he's under 600 yards, 7 touchdowns. But his performance so far to start this year, he had 4 touchdowns and 200 yards in a game. That'll turn heads no matter where you're playing against, who you're playing against. But I think he's firmly on the radar on the day 3 type of guys that everyone has kind of put a pin in and is going to be monitoring for this year. You have the benefit, obviously, when you play with Mendoza and Surratt, who are both NFL guys, there's going to be a lot of eyes on you. So I think he's another dude with these big games coming up. If he keeps putting up good performances against these top defenses, he's a dude that's going to be pushed into that day 3, day 2 draft conversation because this wide receiver class is not very good. So if you can make some moves to the top, there's room to grow.
That's weird. A wide receiver class that isn't very good. That is something it feels like we haven't said in 5 years.
It's good. It's just not as good. I guess
Okay.
we're grading on the scale here. There's still plenty of players I like, but you're not getting Neighbors or Dunze, Marvin Harrison at the top this year.
Yeah, Marvin Harrison's been, I don't want to say bad, but he hasn't been as good as what I think people thought he was going to be. Why do you think that is?
Man, I could probably talk an hour about this. I think it's twofold. One, it's on him. He just needs to play a little bit better. He had some pretty brutal drops in the 49ers game that probably cost them the game. I also just think offensively, it's kind of a funky fit because he is best as this in-breaking X receiver, throws over the middle, and Kyler Murray hates throwing over the middle. He prefers to scramble and throw deep outside the numbers. And for however big Marvin Harrison is, he's weirdly not that great in contested catches. So it's been kind of a funky fit between him, his quarterback, and his offensive coordinator. I still think he's a good player, but I just think overall this Cardinals passing game doesn't fit him. And it's just kind of made him an average X receiver at this point in time.
Kyler wanted to do the scramble around thing and not throw it over the middle. Is that just a size issue?
Yeah, it's pretty common. We see guys that are built like that. They just don't really like operating over the middle, and it's just always how he's been. I think you kind of see it. You see it with Caleb Williams a little bit last year. He's best throwing outside the numbers and moving around, and they've been really trying to hammer it home on him throwing over the middle this year, and it's looked better. I don't think anyone ever told Kyler that, and now we're 8-9 years into his career. I think this is just kind of what he is.
That makes sense. By the way, Caleb Williams is awesome. People ripped him those first 2 weeks, and I was like, I don't feel like he's been that bad. I feel like it's much better than what we saw last year. Quickly, because I know I'm keeping you way too long. Just your thoughts on his first 3 games.
I agree. I think he's been awesome. He hasn't been perfect, but I don't think he's been the issue with this team. They can't run the ball. Their defense is horrendous. I think it's been a little bit up and down. We saw the end of the Vikings game, but that was his first game in a new offense against an elite defense. I think we can cut him a little bit of slack, and I think you're seeing the stuff that really makes him good. This connection with Rome Dunze is really starting to gel. I think this offense, especially this passing game, is going to be really good, and Caleb's going to keep getting better.
I completely agree. Kevin, thank you for your time, man. You were great as always. What are you writing right now? Do you have anything coming out soon?
I every week do Niners and University of Washington stuff. We'll probably do some sort of quarterway check-in with draft prospects here coming up as we get into some real games and I can look at some tape against good opponents.
Sounds good. Kevin, thanks for your time, man.
Yeah, man, always a pleasure.
That is Kevin Potts. You can check him out on X at KevinPotts06. Does a great job covering the NFL. He's got an awesome Substack, really good writer. So make sure you go and check out all of his stuff. The Colts playing the Rams on Sunday. My thoughts on the game in 4 minutes.
Nuggets at noon. The Real Jonathan Smith Show. Now, this is Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app. No matter how you're listening, though, greatly appreciated. And the Colts, I'm going to watch them on Sunday. You're going to watch them on Sunday. And I'm really excited for this game because we're going to get just another idea of how good the Colts are. And like, it's firmly established, they are good. Okay, bad football teams don't start 3-0. Bad football teams don't beat other bad football teams by 4 possessions like they did week 1 against the Dolphins. Bad football teams don't beat other bad football teams by 3 possessions like they did on Sunday against the Titans. They also don't beat a good Denver Broncos team and score, 30 plus on one of the best defenses in football. That's just the very simple reality of it. So the Colts are clearly a good football team. They are clearly the best team in their division. Okay, even though I do think that if Trevor Lawrence can just stop turning the football over, Jacksonville becomes very concerning with their ability to rush the passer and run the football and all those things. But Houston, you don't have to worry about. Tennessee, you don't really have to worry about. And I think that we kind of know who Trevor Lawrence is at this point in his career. So the Colts should win their division barring any sort of injury. Okay. In addition to that, we are going to find out on Sunday how if the Colts are even better than that. Because right now, the Colts feel like a team that are going to go 10-7, 11-6, and make the playoffs. And if they don't have to play, if they don't have to play the Bills or the Ravens or the Chiefs in round 1, then you feel pretty good about them maybe winning a playoff game. That is where we're at. Or that's where I'm at with the Colts right now. But if they go on the road to Los Angeles to play a 2-1 Rams team that's looking to get back right after blowing a lead on Sunday to the Eagles, if they go and they win that game against a Rams team that expects to play in the NFC Championship game this year at a minimum, like a Rams team with legitimate Super Bowl aspirations, if they go beat them, then the conversation around the Colts changes even more. We're talking about them, definitely winning a playoff game, maybe, getting to the AFC Championship game. So this is just another opportunity, not for the Colts to prove that they're good, because that is a firm, established thing. All right, like I hear some of these national media people like Nick Wright continue to compare the Colts to the Saints 2-0 start from last year. It's not the same. It's simply not the same. And so I keep hearing this, and it's just like, it's clearly not that. But they have an opportunity to start 4-0 with 2 really good wins against the Broncos at home and the Rams on the road. And if you do that, then the conversation then turns from, they should win the division, maybe win a playoff game, to they're going to win the division and they're going to win a playoff game, and maybe they can win another one to get to the AFC Championship game. So very excited for this game on Sunday. It is a big deal. And I think that the Colts are going to have a chance because they're just so efficient on offense right now, and Daniel Jones is playing so incredibly well. Here's Rams head coach Sean McVay talking about just the development and the career turnaround that Daniel Jones is having right now.
He's a stud. You know, I think what he's doing is he's seeing the field well. I think Shane does an excellent job of, you know, being able to cater to players' strengths. And you look at it and he's playing in rhythm. He's playing on time. They're a really well orchestrated unit. You know, they do a lot of really good things. He's obviously got the mobility to be able to make you pay as a runner, but I think he's reading well with his feet. He throws the ball with great accuracy and anticipation. And, you know, you see, I mean, he's had some really good glimpses with his tenure in the Giants. You know, I know from talking to Kevin how much he enjoyed being with him in Minnesota. And, you know, it's been impressive to watch their overall operation with Daniel leading the way. And then obviously Jonathan Taylor and their skill players and their offensive line. There's no weaknesses. It's why they're, you know, the best offense in the league through 3 weeks.
Sean McVay right there talking about the Colts and Daniel Jones and, you know, between him and the skill players and Jonathan Taylor and, you know, how awesome he's been. Like the Colts have put together one of the best offenses, or no, correction, the best offense in football to start the season. They lead the league in yards per play, only punted once, all of those things. And it's because of Daniel Jones and the two things that he's done at a higher clip than he's ever done in his career. First and foremost, he's not turning the football over. The Colts are only one of 3 teams in football with 0 turnovers through the first 3 games. That is why they're winning. Okay, when you're winning the turnover battle 5-0 through your first 3 games, like you should be 3-0 when you're taking possessions away and you're not giving them back. So Daniel Jones doing an excellent job of not turning the football over. This is a guy who's fumbled the football, 50 times in his career coming into this year. A guy who's thrown 47 interceptions in his career coming into this year. So it's a guy who, is very capable of giving the football to the other team, and he's done a great job of just simply not allowing for that to happen. Okay, and that is because of his, decision making with the football, where to throw it, and also this Colts offensive line doing a really nice job of protecting him. He's only been sacked twice all year, so just really impressive decision making from him, and just really impressive protection from the offensive line. And then you pair that with the fact that they're just on schedule all the time. Sean McVay brought it up. Only been in 2nd and 11 twice all year, or 2nd and 11 or more. Okay, and that is a disciplined thing of not committing bad penalties. And that's also, once again, a decision-making thing from Daniel Jones, just consistently getting them into 2nd and 6 as opposed to 2nd and 10 or 2nd and worse. So I'm a firm believer that the most important down in football is 3rd down. If you're good on 3rd down, you're going to win a lot of games. Because if you're good on 3rd down, that means that you're going to keep the sticks moving. And if you keep the sticks moving, you're not going to punt, and you're going to score a bunch of points. And the Colts have obviously been awesome on 3rd down. But the second most important down in football is 1st down. It is, because if on 1st and 10, I go from that to 2nd and 4, I'm probably going to pick up a 1st down on either 2nd or 3rd down. Or if I go from 1st and 10 to 2nd and 14 because my running back gets tackled for a loss, or my quarterback gets sacked, or whatever it is, I'm not going from 2nd and 14 to 1st and 10 probably. And so the Colts have just been super efficient on 1st down, which has just made their lives on 3rd down even easier. And this is where Jonathan Taylor really begins to matter. Jonathan Taylor's development as a guy who can pick up blitzes and a guy who can catch the football out of the backfield and pick up 8 yards after he makes someone miss. Like this is where it really, really matters. Because now, on 1st and 10, you can throw the football and just throw it to Jonathan Taylor. Like that is an option for them now. And, teams in the NFL, this is just a football thing in general, teams like to run the football on 1st down. They just do. And so, teams come out and they see Jonathan Taylor and they see 2 tight ends out, Mo Alley Cox and Tyler Warren. And it's we have to be ready for them to run the football. And then the Colts are like, no, we're going to throw it because you're in your normal base defense with 7 guys in the box. And then you can throw it to Warren or Pittman or Downs or whoever it winds up being. And then, you do that enough, then you're just like, all right, you're not, you're not going to put 7 guys in the box. All right, here you go, Jonathan. And then Jonathan Taylor picks up 8 yards. Right? It's such a tough offense to stop because of how well balanced it is and how I don't know, obviously Jonathan Taylor's the best player on the offense, but there's not like a major drop off from the running backs to the wide receivers to the quarterback. Like, you have to account for all of them at all times, but especially Jonathan Taylor, he's been the best running back in football this year. No question about it. And Sean McVay was asked about the Colts' star running back.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, he's excellent. He's a slash runner. He's a home run hitter. I think, they do a great job. He's got a great feel where, you give him a vertical seam, he gets clean to the second level. And then he's even had some dirty runs where he'll make people miss and then end up coming out the gate for, 50 yards, or he can take it to the house. So he is special. He's dynamic. And, it's going to be a similar theme in terms of you have to get 11 hats to the football because of how great this guy is.
Sean McVay right there talking about Colts running back Jonathan Taylor and just how dynamic and how awesome he's been for them to start this season. And yeah, he's just been so much fun. He has been the Colts' best player, and it's been just a blast to watch. And I'm really excited to see how they deal with a really good Rams front 7, especially that front 4. It's nasty. They blitz the pass. They rush the passer. They rush the passer incredibly well. And this is going to be a really good test for this Colts offensive line. The Broncos were the team that led football last year and in sacks, and Nick Bonito had, 13.5 last year. This Rams front is a little bit different. There's not one dude like a Nick Bonito who's just coming off the edge, terrorizing everybody. It's much more balanced. It's Byron Young and Jared Verse and Braden Fisk. It's 3 guys, right? So how they deal with that is going to be really interesting. Matt Gonzalez, he was in a boot yesterday. He's got a toe injury apparently. Hopefully he's out of that today and he's playing because they're really going to need him this week because of just how well this Rams team rushes the passer, and then obviously they drop 7. So we'll see how it looks for the offensive line. We'll see how it looks for this defense. The Rams they can run the football. I don't know if you watched them play the Eagles last week, but Matthew Stafford wasn't good, and they scored a bunch of points because they just lined it up and ran the football so incredibly well. They obviously lose that game 33-26, but just a really impressive offense from the Rams. Matthew Stafford struggled, not 19 of 34 for not even 200 yards. So that's not great, but they ran the football for 160 yards and they averaged over 5 yards a carry. That's what the Rams did to Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, one of the best defensive tackle pairings in the NFL. And so how this Colts defense holds up, we know about Xavier Howard and the struggles that he's had. They're going to have to put him over either Devontae Adams or Puka Nacua. I don't know how that's going to go. While the Rams do have a weakness at center, they just ran the ball for 160 yards against the Eagles, whose front 7 is significantly better than the Colts. So I think it's if the Colts find a way to win, or if you think that the Colts are going to win or have a chance to win, I would bet the over. That's what I would do. Because if the Colts are going to have a chance to win this game, it's going to be another game kind of like the Broncos won, where they win 31-29 or whatever it ended up being. And they won because their offense was awesome and their defense forced 1 turnover. That feels like the similar path to victory on Sunday against, once again, a really good Rams team that is going to make life really tough on the Colts on both sides of the football. Because anytime you're dealing with Matthew Stafford on defense, you know that your life is going to be made very difficult. Same goes for Sean McVay when you're having to deal with him as well. That's not the easiest thing to deal with. And then offensively, this is a really good pass rush. We'll see how this Colts offensive line holds up. Hopefully, Matt Gonzalez is good to go. We should know we might already know if he's going to practice today or not. If he does, then you feel pretty good about him playing. But if he doesn't, then you're going to have like Danny Pinter or someone like that in there, and that might get a little rocky. So we'll see. Big game for the Colts on Sunday, just with another opportunity to really prove how good of a team they are. That's going to do it here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to tune in, no matter how you tuned in. Just an absolute blast. I love doing this show. So thank you for tuning in. Subscribe on YouTube, Indie Sports Ticket. Follow me as well, __ Jonathan Smith. And if you want more from me, go check out the My Take Is YouTube page. That'll do it. I'll talk to you tomorrow starting at 10 a.m. Peace.